Something I noticed this year at Brighton Fringe, which I have noticed at pretty much every other Fringe festival I've been to, is a phenomenon that is a kind of uneven ticket sales at venues that have more than one performance space. And so in a couple of the venue hubs at Brighton Fringe this year, for example, I was sitting, as I often do, I call it fringe watching. I might be reviewing a show a bit later, and it's just good to see what's happening around the venues. And so I was sitting there in fairly hot sun, and what I noticed in one of the venues, which had 3 different performance spaces of varying sizes, was that one show, which was very much billed when I looked at it as a show with a younger audience. These were graduates. It was a sci-fi play. Was that when I went in to review it, it was absolutely full up, pretty much. Oh, it's pretty full. It wasn't quite a sellout, but I'd say there were just 2 or 3 empty seats. Next to that, in a much bigger venue, was a drag show, and as the sounds of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, beautifully sung and beautifully applauded, drifted across to where I was in the other venue, what you could tell, and I heard afterwards, that was a complete sellout. Then there was a smaller space, actually probably a 30 or 40 seater, and I noticed the 2 performers looking rather downhearted because their 6 foot by 3 foot poster, which clearly came from other Fringe festivals with a lot of provenance, 4 or 5 star reviews. I saw a few things saying sellout show. I think they had about 4 or 5 people in, and they'd made assumptions that I think I invite you, whatever Fringe festival you're performing in, if you are from out of town, they made an assumption that a venue hub has passing trade, and though that might be the case, in a lot of cases it isn't. And so we've got a problem here in that you're arriving, you might be arriving just the night before to do a tiny bit of flyering if you can afford that, because you've got to stay somewhere. Some shows arrive on the day, then they check in how are the ticket sales, and they realise they've got, in some cases, no sales at all, or just a handful. So one of the questions is, what can you do about it? And the answer to the first one is, don't assume that large venue hubs have any passing trade for you at all. There can be passing trade in that people will say, I wonder what's on at the XYZ venue, and they'll go and look for a show to see. But even then they might favour groups that have played in Brighton before, or that might be locally based. And it's that money is tight, and they might not have had the time, they might not have the money to take a punt on an unknown show. Even though you are known, perhaps even nationally or internationally, it could simply be that with the noise of Fringe, you've arrived and you've simply disappeared in that noise. The other thing, of course, that happened, and certainly happened in the example of the 2 shows, and it happened in other venues, is a good part of that audience may be people that the cast knows. And so that may not just be that if they're mates, it could be that they played several times at Brighton Fringe and have built up their audience. Brighton here at the moment in the morning is, you can see there, Pavilion Gardens Cafe, FringeReview headquarters is just opening up, and it's a beautiful, slightly cooler morning that it's been for the last few days. And I only mention that because we're still in Brighton Fringe at the moment, and I would say it's perhaps a bit early, though it isn't in Edinburgh, but people will be out and about flyering their shows, and there's an advantage if you live in the city, because they may well have been doing that on and off for a few weeks before their show, and they've already built up ticket sales. Is it worth doing local PR before you arrive? I would say yes, it is, but there's obviously a cost going with that, because obviously if you're paying for flyers and flyers to be sent around all the usual flyer drop places in shops and cafes, that's going to cost you. But certainly that would put you alongside locals who may well have got flyers put in local cafes for free. So there is a marketing budget that's just common sense about arriving in a city or a town or a Fringe that you are not a native to. Some people I do know, and in fact I'm doing an interview with someone today who's not from Brighton at all, who's arriving a day early and is going to be out and about flyering some of the other venue hubs as well. And that definitely is a way to build up audience. You have to become a local very quickly. And for example, at the Edinburgh Fringe, certainly for people that are playing the whole month, they arrive in what's called week 0 and do preview nights. And it's another way of becoming the local performer. But let's take the scenario where you simply can't afford that, you don't have the time to do it, and you're going to arrive literally a few hours before your show, and you would like to have a few ticket sales. And I'm afraid the only kind of solution to that that's obvious is social media. But that does involve going beyond what the websites might offer you. They might just say, you know, these are the hashtags for Brighton Fringe. They might be the hashtag for the venue. But I would say try and get yourself listed in a lot of the local What's On guides, of which there are many in Brighton. And if you go early enough, you're going to find there are paper-based magazines that you can get in and have features and interviews beforehand if you send out those press releases. But we get press releases months in advance for Brighton Fringe, and we might come and review you. But if you're only playing a couple of days at Brighton Fringe, then there's a problem, because by the time the review's up, you've gone anyway, so it doesn't have a chance to work as it does in Edinburgh. And I've made other videos about how to do it for longer runs. But certainly hashtagging locally can help. Coming a week before and just leaflet dropping where you can is a really, really good idea. Using all the social media channels. Brighton's quite an ideological place, so I've noticed more Brightonians are on Blue Sky, and people are beginning, if they haven't already done so, to leave X. The other one is to twin, and that is to find local groups, theatre companies. They may not be competing with you. You might find you've got contacts in a town and get them to do a little bit of publicity beforehand. If that's possible, they could drop a few leaflets, and some people have absolutely put those in the post, literally, and people have just put them around as they go and see shows in their home city. So having local friends and local colleagues is a real possibility, and you can do you flyer my show and I'll flyer yours if you can find out that a Brighton based company is coming to your home city maybe a little bit later, and twinning up. That happens in Edinburgh. People just meet each other, go see each other's shows, and start to advocate for each other. And there's nothing quite like having flyers, if it is allowed, on tables way before you come, and they've been put there by local companies and local friends who advocate for you. But I would say, and it's just the reality, don't assume that venues have got passing trade, that you're going to somehow hit the ground running, because on the evidence of my own eyes, that isn't the case.